Right. Hello fellow YouTubers. If you're new here, my name is Neil. If you've been here before, welcome back. I recently bought this Amaran P60c light. If you're just starting out shooting videos, this is a good light to start with. You may have watched other YouTube videos on this light and how it has some great features and effects. But what most of them don't talk about is that it has 1/4" threads around the light. And you're supposed to use this bracket here to mount it, which is only so good, let's face it. So there's a 1/4", there's a 1/4", and there's a 1/4". Now, if you're mounting it on a light stand and you're just using it pretty much like that, that's okay. But if you were, and I'll turn it around, if you were trying to mount it any other way, if you're trying to tilt it, that's putting a lot of strain on those 1/4" sockets that are fitted into it. I don't know how well they're done, whether there are any anchoring points inside. I suspect there isn't. Now, these particular style of lights are really designed for the low end of the market. The other style that they build, the bigger lights, are designed for the more expensive part of the market. So they're built a lot better. So these are quite cheaply built in comparison. Don't get me wrong, they're a good light. They put out some quite a large amount of light. But why couldn't they have designed these things, if I can take it off, with a proper mounting bracket? Was it a cost factor, or is it because they're aiming it at the low end of the market? I have used some of the higher end lights in my previous jobs, and they always came with something like this. This is called a yoke, and this is what was fitted on most lights, most of the big professional lights. So for some reason they've omitted it off these lights. Now, is it, as I say, a cost factor, or is it because they're aiming it at us YouTubers who probably wouldn't know any better? A bit of a Google search turned up that you can buy such mounting brackets like this off eBay. You can get them from B&H. You can get them from several places in the States. But trying to get them through Amazon here in Australia, I found that unfortunately they're no longer available, and may not be, depending on the supplier. So the cost of these that I found were upwards of $50, which is not unreasonable. But if you're getting them from the States and you're paying $50 for that, plus tax on top of that, plus all the other bits and pieces, plus import, well, it's going to start coming up quite a few dollars. So therefore, being the thrifty DIY type of person that I am, I decided that I've got a lump of steel floating around in my scrap bin. I've got a mount for it, not unlike what's on this one, but this one's got a thread to make my life easier. This one's actually riveted on, and no, I can't fit this to this one, unfortunately. So we're going to have to make our own. I also found online a couple of 1/4" ratchets. So all these were available via AliExpress. It did take quite a bit of hunting to find these ones, and I can't remember who I got them off. Because they're Imperial, they seem to sell a lot of metric. The Imperials are out there, but they're just harder to find. And so was this. This was relatively easy once I sort of figured out what to call it on AliExpress. If I can find the links or the ads for them, I'll put them in the video somewhere in the descriptions. Okay, so let's get started on making our own bracket. Right, off screen. So what we're going to have to do is measure our light to work out exactly how far we need to come down from the screw holes to miss where the DC socket is, because that plug that comes out sticks a good 50mm below that. Don't know what that is in Imperial, sorry guys. I'm sure you can Google it, just like we do when we're trying to figure out inches. So I'm thinking I needed to have the bend around 160 to 200mm. So if we say 200mm, okay, we need 200mm for each side. That's 400mm plus what's across the base. The base I need around about 170 to 175. So we've got to add all that up. Okay, 400, that'd be about 575. Got more than enough steel here, so what I might end up doing is do a couple of bends, making sure that the steel goes past the screw holes. Then I can trim off the excess if I want to, or leave it there, just depending on how I want to do things. So we're going to head on over to the vise in just a minute, and I'll try and bring you guys with me. Might be a little bit difficult. We might do it with a GoPro, might be easier. And we'll stick the GoPro over there. We might even use the P60c Amaran light to give us a bit of extra light over there, and we'll see how we go. So why don't you follow me over to the vise and we'll get started. I'm going to measure 200 mil, got my pencil. Right. Oh. That's better. Okay. So, our first bend. How does that actually look? I don't know. We'll find out very shortly. So now we're going to try and get the next part in and do that bend. We might have to go in a bit further. Pencils there. So the trick is to know how far your radius is going to come around when you bend it to how much you'll actually have outside of it. So we want to bend as close as possible to that, I imagine, because otherwise we're going to end up with it being too wide. So we might put this in the vise and come in about there. Is that going to be too far, or is it going to be too little? I think we'll give it a whirl there and see how we go. About 90 is square and true. That's going to be the next thing. It's going to be an issue. And no, it's not. So we're going to have to give it a bit of a bend. Right. How does that look? Close up. A bit more. Okay. Must have been a bit, oh, it's pretty close. A bit heavy-handed to begin with. So we'll just give this a try on the bench. We'll have a look. Bit of a trial fit, which you didn't see because it was off camera. I will turn the camera around and I will try it on the light in just a second. So you can see it's now got its two radius bends. It's probably more than long enough. I just got to make sure that this length from here to here is long enough to clear that DC connected. So we'll take you back over there in front of the table and we'll do a bit more checking. So 1, 2, 3 and right. I'm back. Brackets here, lights here. There's the bracket bent. Took longer to set the GoPro up over the top of the vise than it did actually to bend this. Now these are reasonably straight and true. It doesn't look like it necessarily on camera, but they are. I've tested them and they sit reasonably well on the table, reasonably flat. Okay, I need a pencil. Just grab my pencil. So I have to drill the 1/4 inch holes and try and work out where I want those. Now I'm going to sort of go along the cable. There is a device there to stop interference coming up the cable. So I'm going to go halfway between that and the bottom of the plug. That's where this bracket's going to sit. So I'm going to have them around about there. And I'm going to say that that is about where I want to drill my holes. So now I've got, I can hardly see it because it's grey on grey, but there we go. So now I can do a quick measurement from the bottom to there, drill that hole, then we drill the hole for the spigot to go at the bottom. We'll put it all together and we'll see how it goes with the new mount. And I think this was $10 or $12 and I think I paid about 4, 5, maybe 6 for the pair of those, plus the lump of steel, which would probably cost you, I don't know, $20 at the Big Red Hammer box office store we have here in Australia. Australians know who I'm talking about. So it hasn't cost much. It's cost less than $50 to make the whole bracket here. It's probably closer to $30. And my time, which I'm retired, so I have a bit of time now. So I'm going to drill a few holes, cut them to roughly the right length. You don't really need to see that, but I'll come back in a minute with the holes drilled and the steel cut to the right length. Okay, back in a minute. So I did all the drilling off camera. Here is the bracket, holes, okay. It's got a hole in the bottom. I did a quick test fit to see how it all goes. I probably will need to put some sort of a packer between the inside edge of the brackets and the actual light itself, because it doesn't seem to be perfectly tight, but it's not bad. So once I put a washer in between there, I may put a steel one, I'm not sure. I may need some packers on the outside because these bolts are a little bit on the long side. You could actually cut them down. I can't be bothered. I reckon a couple of washers and that'll be the problem solved. So I'll bring you back in a minute once I've done all that, and I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll be taking the bracket off to paint it before installing it permanently. So back in a minute. And here it is, the bracket's all made. I've got extra washers in there, washers between the ratchet screw to the bracket, a washer between the bracket to the actual light, which is now just undo one of those. These can be tilted. It could be used up, down, it could be used from a grid, it can be used just about anywhere. It's a lot more secure. My only gripe is I probably should have made it a little bit taller from here to here. Okay, that would have been a good idea because it does actually just hit the back of there, but I could just notch the metal a little bit so the cable sits into it, so it's just that little bit out of the way. So I mean, look, it's almost perfectly at 90 degrees. It's probably around about 88. It's not going to be a big deal, but the rest of it is now a lot more stable. It doesn't rock. It's quite stable on the stand, way better than one of these cheaper nasty things. So for around about the $30 or under, that's a simple way of fixing your problems. So hopefully you enjoy that. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.